You still see it? Okay. Okay. Welcome to the last academy, which is crazy. I feel like that every week. I'm like, I can't believe it's week 5. I can't believe it's week 8. We're done after this. But it's been a really, really great couple weeks together. So today, if you want to drop in the chat, I know we kind of did warm welcomes, but if there's anything else you want to share with us, work-wise, life-wise, we'll respond in the chat. Today, we're going to be talking about sustaining the program. So if somebody leaves, if the funding dries up, if there's competing priorities, if you've been doing this for a decade, how do we continue to sustain this program? We're going to talk about that today. There's going to be several actually local highlight kind of scenarios that we're going to talk through. And then there'll be a few times for breakout rooms. And Kelly, maybe if it's only 8 of us, we can just do it in 1 or 2. We can play it by ear. Again, these are all the topics we covered, and we are at sustaining your program. So the first, as we do every week, is the call to action. So last week, we asked you to complete the Safe Routes to School evaluation. It'll be dropped in the chat. And then the second thing was for you to really start thinking through and identifying those key stakeholders that'd be helpful to connect with now that everyone's coming back to school. We're all going to do our jobs. Minnesota summer is on the end. Who can we connect with, set up a meeting, grab coffee with, to talk through kind of how we connect and prioritize safe routes in its own or within other programs as well. So we have a breakout room scheduled. We could do 2 of them if you want, Kelly, or do we want a big group? What do people think? Big group?
Big group.
All right. Fun. Okay. So let's do round robin. Knowing Kelly, myself, and Phoebe did not do the call to action. We would skew the evaluation, so we didn't do that. But if you just wanted to go around and kind of just share these 2 points, there will be another breakout later on in the presentation that will kind of be more reflective of the academy and lessons learned. So just know that there's another one coming. But Robert, you're the one that's on my screen showing. So if you want to go first, that would be great.
I did the call to action survey. So I guess first, thank you for the past 8 weeks. It's been a joy to log on every week. And I think for me, next steps are kind of looping together our contact at our school district, Rosetta School District, and also leadership at the city. I unfortunately don't get to make the big budget money decisions on how we're prioritizing infrastructure at the city, but at least laying a framework to get safe routes, the ball in motion again at the city.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think I'll go look back in my emails. There may have been a school in Wayzata that reached out at Bike to School Day.
Okay.
Unless it was Deep Haven, which I know they're right next to each other. So I'll look and I'll send you a note in case that's a new contact for you.
Cool, that would be great.
Yeah. Savannah, you're next on my list.
Yeah, next steps I think is just continuing to kind of keep our outreach going and keep safe routes to school in everyone's minds. I think that a lot of our communities, they're not thinking about it, and so because they have so many other things they're worrying about, and so just keeping that kind of in the forefront. I know that there's a couple of schools that we're kind of talking to, they're like, oh, we didn't realize that like this could be a safe routes to school project, or like we could do this and make this partnership. And so I think just kind of continuing to have those conversations, and sometimes it takes a couple of years to get things moving, and so kind of prepping everyone and priming them to have those kind of thoughts in the back of their mind so that when they're ready to like take action, that they'll be ready. So I think that's kind of where we're at in our next steps, is just continue our communication with all of our partners and stakeholders.
Awesome. Thank you. Anne, I know you're on the call.
Good morning. Well, first of all, just like Robert said, thank you you put a lot of effort into this because it shows in your presentations and great information. Now you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have it for the next academy, and it's really, really important stuff. And having been in it only 3 years now, I kind of feel like a little veteran. And maybe I am, I don't know. But it was always good reminders on just on all the E's and grab some new ideas, and and the networking is really important too. So appreciate all that you guys have done for the academy, and it was really a fun way to spend the summer too, because I didn't have to go into work. I could do it from right here, from home, and it was awesome. So I'm super pumped because we just yesterday laid new lines for another traffic garden at Cohasset Elementary. Kelly, part of the boost grant there. And my painter is gonna go after a workshop today and start painting in the open spots with the up north theme. So very excited to add another traffic garden. But I go back a couple years. This only happened because I invited people to the meeting, like the city engineer, Itasca County engineers, and they kind of took this project and ran with it. Before I knew it, they had a template drawn, they laid it. The surveyor put dots down, the Grand Rapids City came in and lined it. So it takes a lot of coordination, but you really, for those on the call here, really get to know people that work for the city and for your county, and everybody wants to help, and it's great. And we're gonna have a big ribbon cutting ceremony for our new sidewalk, school sidewalk in Cohasset in a couple weeks. So the ball is rolling, and so it's been really fun. I know this, we got the boost grant for one more year. I don't know, will we be able to apply for another one if we have more projects? I don't know, but or is that cut off too?
I can jump in, but Kelly, Phoebe, correct me if I'm wrong. So we do not have a boost grant this next fall, but boost grants are eligible for any new project. The stipulation with that is it's not like a reoccurring payment for positions and such. But if you have a new project at a new site, you're always eligible to apply for more.
All right, well, we'll get creative and think of some new projects to do it. But yeah, to sustain it, I mean, I'm a little bit worried about it. Like, if we don't get the grant or I'm not here, how is it going to happen? So that's something that we have to figure out in our area up north. So
I'm going to challenge you by the end of this call. We're going to come back and ask you if there's any key kind of like, aha, maybe this is one way we can think through of sustaining this. Hopefully maybe there will be something. Thanks.
Well, again, thank you. It's been good. The city has loved it. I just had another story in the front page of our local paper. I've done like 4 press releases on 4 safe route school infrastructure grants and city sidewalks that have been gone in. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get the word out there about safe route school. So
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do too. Tony, I'm gonna call on you.
I really appreciated this. I think for someone who's done a few plans, I'm far from an expert, but I understand the process. I think it just emphasizes some blind spots that maybe I wasn't aware of when doing some of the other plans, and I appreciate that. I also really, really like your mapping tool that you have on the Safe Routes website is tremendous, like top notch. And when you can zoom in and you can see some of the holes, it just trying to replicate some of the success we've had in some of our counties, and how do we go and fill in some of the gaps in Hubbard County or Clearwater County. So it made me think about how can and maybe I start at the county board level and work backwards and get support from that level. And I think that'll make it, then you're not dragging the project through the whole way, it's kind of being pushed. And so I'm excited to see what opportunities will come next.
Awesome. We're excited to cheer you on and support you as we can. Who else is on? And those are the folks that I could see while sharing my screen. If you haven't shared yet, you're welcome to come off mute. I know Emma just joined. Is there anyone else?
I have not shared yet.
Perfect.
Okay, so I came in a little bit late, but I did make sure to watch through all of the recordings because I am taking Gina Johnson's place. Well, in this call, not not in general, but
And you have a background with safe routes.
yes. Yeah. So I am really looking to speak with a specific school kind of district in Goodhue County that has a lot of interest in making a safe routes to school plan, but doesn't have the resources right now. So I want to work with the principal there, some of the city staff, and those are partnerships I really want to build.
Awesome. Thanks for the catch up on the recordings. Austin, do you want to give the group a little background of where you were at before Goodhue?
Yeah, so from 2023 to Saturday of last week, I was with the Minnesota Department of Health Office of Statewide Health Improvement Initiatives, or OSHI, which is the state office that is in charge of facilitation and like the revamping every 5 years of the statewide health improvement partnership. And I was specifically working with Ellen Pillsbury, the content expert on active living. So I was doing a lot of technical assistance around safe routes to schools and also safe routes to parks, which is an aside, but.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thanks for watching and thanks for joining the last call. Emma, I'm going to call on you.
What exactly are we sharing, I guess?
That's okay. We're just doing a highlight of the call to action. So evaluation or just any notes you had from the academy reflection. And then if you were able to identify any stakeholders or if you have any that you're hoping to connect with in the coming weeks as everyone comes back from a Minnesota summer off.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of just started with some safe routes to school planning. So this is a really nice just to get like a huge overview of it all and kind of like tips and tricks on how to do everything. So just kind of like helping me identify who I should be connecting with. So yeah, just helping me get started, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. Is there anyone else on the call who hasn't shared? Okay. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that stuff. I'm going to be excited for a little later on the call to talk more with reflections and lessons learned from you all. Okay, so for today's context, we are going to be talking about sustaining your Safe Routes to School program. Kelly, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I don't have the slides up, so are you okay to advance for me?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so I like to think of, we talk about 6 E's, and I know in the ship world they talk about PSE. Another way I like to think about our work is thinking through the 4 P's, right? So how do we do some policy that is going to, keep a sustained effort over time with not a lot of nudging along the way? How do we do planning so that we know where we're going? Programming that helps support the infrastructure and changes in policies that we want, and the partnerships that are required to make this all happen. So as you're kind of thinking through the work, have you done a policy approach? Do you have a plan? Is there some programs to support it? And do you have really strong invested partners to help keep this work moving forward? Next slide. So similar to that, thinking about where can we embed safe routes to school in plans or policies or resolutions that are going to kind of sustain this work, whether you win the lottery and shift, or some of your partners in the school shift, elected officials turn over, folks retire. We want to have this effort and this work to be sticky. So what's that stickiness factor that it is going to stick around once you are gone or moving on to something else? So thinking about, school district pieces, the school wellness policies, city and county plans, other policies around requiring certain infrastructure,
and when and how to touch base with our partners. So one of them that is really a strong, good policy to consider, next slide, is complete streets policies. And so these are really making sure that when we are thinking about a road reconstruction or a road update, we are thinking about all users in that roadway and not just car or vehicle drivers. So does this roadway have pedestrians on it? Okay, pedestrians use it. Do we have sidewalks, crosswalks? Do we need high visibility? Do we need blinky lights and extra things because there's so many pedestrians or a lot of vulnerable road users like students or seniors, or the context around is where there might be a lot of people crossing, like a downtown area, a park, across from a sports field. And so what can be really challenging with this is that, we can't have advocates go to every city council meeting to advocate for a change on every roadway. It's a lot of effort. It might be a lot of hostility. So a complete streets policy says, before we even ask for funding, as we're thinking about what this project is, we're thinking about people walking, we're thinking about people biking, those using transit and car drivers. It does not mean bike lanes on all streets. It means where it makes sense to ensure multimodal transportation happens. That's what we're looking for, and at least we're having that conversation. This is an example of Highway 61 in Lake City, which is a small community, I think around 5,000, for sure under 10,000, that had a 4-lane roadway, and they did road resizing through their complete streets policy. It's a MnDOT roadway. So it went into one travel lane each way, lots of pedestrian kind of medians and crossings, a side path and a sidewalk on each side for our bikers and our pedestrians, and really just made this space more inviting. There's a lot of businesses there. Now it's a lot easier to visit those businesses by foot and not just having to drive, because crossing 4 lanes of traffic was pretty hard. So one other thing about a complete streets is every jurisdiction needs one. So if you are in a city and your city has a complete streets policy, that is fantastic. Do know that MnDOT also has a complete streets policy. So wherever we are building, reconstructing our roadways, we are considering all users. But cities and counties also need to have complete streets policies. Otherwise, maybe your city and your MnDOT roadways are going to be complete streets, but then your county roads will lack those considerations for other modal users. There are tons of resources for complete streets out there. Smart Growth America, MnDOT has a complete streets page, so you can get sample language. You can find other communities near you that have had this. You have, outreach kind of materials to share with partners. So this is an example. Smart Growth America is probably the best resource to go to for complete streets. And this is kind of one of their policy frameworks that they have, and there's some language to do. So some cities don't, complete streets, they might, some folks don't like complete streets, as in like, oh, it's a deficient mindset. We don't have complete streets. So maybe they're talking a policy that's safer streets or safe systems. Or I've heard like green friendly streets, and they've also incorporated some like drainage and water quality components into their concept of complete streets. So, it doesn't have to be complete streets if that's like a naughty term in your area, but the concept of thinking about all users is what we're really looking for. So next slide. So sometimes when complete streets aren't something that your community or partners are willing to do, maybe they're really concerned about thinking about bicyclists, bike lanes, or not applicable to think about transit. A lot of our rural and small communities might do a sidewalk policy. So it's a little smaller scale, and it says anytime there's a new development, that developer is required to add in sidewalks. So this is really helpful as our communities are growing. We are adding or ensuring that there's sidewalks in those areas. And then the city and partners are just thinking about that infill of past development and how to improve that sidewalk connectivity and that sidewalk network. One other piece I'll note is that for infrastructure grants, since 2016, the legislature put a policy that state infrastructure grants require that a community has some type of safe routes to school policy. So it is vague that it could be a complete streets policy, could be a sidewalk policy, or something like that. And the intent behind that was the legislature didn't want to keep putting up safe routes funding for schools that are newly built and maybe should have considered sidewalks and other built environment infrastructure to support walking, biking, and student transportation, and really wanting this funding for infrastructure to go to areas that are a little bit older and need that infill more. So sidewalk policies certainly are a little bit easier to add in, and there can be nuances to it. Maybe it's just new development. Maybe it is new development in areas around a school or the library or some of those key destination points. There's some flexibility on what that could or should look like. So that is just kind of also like a map there of where there are sidewalks, where there's gaps, and where they're looking to do some of that infill, along with highlighting those key destination nodes of the schools in that community. So you can kind of see how the sidewalk policy might complement it. Next slide. Sidewalk improvement programs is another way to consider how to fund sidewalk infill. Maybe a grant application is for a long stretch of a sidewalk or a long stretch of a side path, and that's like an easier application than doing like 15 small blocks that needed a sidewalk added in to create that connected network in the community. So a sidewalk improvement program is, instead of assessing the business or homeowner for that sidewalk to be built, we recognize that our infrastructure supports all the community members. So there is a fee that is put on housing taxes that supports that sidewalk infill every year. So you aren't paying $4,000 one time for the sidewalk in front of your house, or a business isn't paying 40 grand for the sidewalk in front of their business. There is maybe a small fee of $50 a year that is going to go and create that funding to build those sidewalks. This is a really smart approach right now, as funding is looking like it's going to be more limited in the next couple of years. What can we do at a local level to build up our reserves to support this work? And so we're not relying on grant applications every year, which you might be searching funding for one project a year. That's going to take forever to build this in. So this is one example. Next slide is more local to me, since I'm aware of this. Rochester has implemented the sidewalk improvement program. There's some videos and handouts on their website, which we can drop the link in a second. So instead of that, like $3,000 to $5,000, the fee that is on my taxes for owning a house in Rochester is $57 a year. So that is a pretty minimal amount to create a full sidewalk network. And then they are determining where that funding goes based on like pedestrian density and the highest need, and looking at crashes. So they're working kind of strategically on where this funding is used, but the policy was passed that the funding does come from all the taxpayers in the community. And it's been well received, actually. Snow removal policies are also something to consider, and also a lighter lift, but still is going to give you that policy change. So there's a couple pieces to this. It might be changing the policy or updating it and promoting the policy. Some cities have 24 hours from a snowfall of like a ½ inch or more. You need to clear it. Some communities, it's 48 hours. And sometimes there's communities that will have something that's a little different. So it'll be 24 or 48 hours, but there might be priority routes for schools or businesses that need to be cleared first by the city, county, or business owners. So another way to think about it, and then using your city resources to promote this and really encourage that it's not just to be mean. We don't have fines just to be mean. There is a necessity for kids to get to school or people to get to work or wherever it might be. So promoting through like water bills, the community channel online, special emails out, letters out, social media, all these things just to remind people why and how it is important. Next slide. So there's some sample policy language that you could consider, share with partners. Again, kind of a policy to consider. The next one, I believe, is long-range transportation plans. So again, where can we sprinkle in safe routes so that we get that stickiness factor, that this work is embedded into what our community does? So most communities are going to have some form of a long-range transportation plan. It might be an addendum or something that is similar or used alongside a comprehensive plan for the community, but making sure that, you know, bicycle and pedestrian needs are listed in there, and sometimes those bike ped or alternative transportation sections are pretty light. So figuring out ways that you can incorporate safe routes to school, or prioritizing students and seniors who might not drive as much, and ensuring their routes are considered when building out our plans. Next slide. So a couple different examples here on how you could have goals or project selection, or thinking about equity and safety integration into those plans. There's certainly more examples online, but there is ways to kind of embed it there. So your community doesn't have the palette to do a new policy, but maybe we can make some nudges and adjustments in the plans. Many of these might be getting redone here in the next 5 years or so. So it is good timing to see where they're at and what appetite there is to infuse more bike ped or safe routes to school components in it. Next slide. This one I'm pretty excited to share about. So this is a new statewide policy that the legislature passed in 2019. And it gives cities the authority, without working with MnDOT, the authority to lower speed limits below 30. So we know from the data that if you get hit by a car and you're walking at 20 miles per hour, you are going to be injured, but you have a very high survivability rate. However, if you get hit while walking at 40 miles per hour, you're going to be very injured and have a very low survivability rate. So the more we can lower those speeds, the more likely, if a terrible, situation happens and a crash happens, that person is going to survive. But also, it just feels more comfortable to be walking when the cars are going slow and you're not feeling them zoom past you. So a couple examples of this happening. We have over 40 communities across the state who have done this. You can go to the next slide. There's just a few that are listed there. I've highlighted the ones that are kind of more of those like rural or small towns as examples that we are seeing this all over. Those speeds, Minneapolis and St. Paul, 20 is plenty. Many of the other communities we're seeing that like 25 is what they're going for. And again, we know drivers might speed a little bit. So if it's 25 and they're going 30, that's still a heck of a lot better than going 35 or 40. So those little bits help, and it also creates this community-wide campaign to lower the speeds. It is still up to the authority of the engineer and the city if there's other streets, like this is a main arterial, this is a heavily used road, this road we're going to keep it at 30, 35, 40, but it gives you that opportunity to lower and adjust all the speeds. So thinking about Vision Zero for youth, where are youth going? We don't just want the school areas to be safe. We want kids and families to be able to travel throughout our community and be safe. So lowering that speed limit, there's some resources online as well, or talking to some of these communities that have done it can be helpful. And I just threw some of the different signs and graphics that are out there for other communities as examples. And MnDOT also just did a study to show the efficacy of lowering speed limits for crash reduction and the severity of crashes in these communities that are listed. So it is a proven to reduce traffic safety issues. Next slide. And I'm throwing it back to you, Sophie.
Back to me. So Kelly wanted to talk through, that was more like community-based planners, city partners. And we just wanted to give a couple more examples of sustainability if you are in the school, or if you want to focus and you have partners and energy in school districts. So the first one, I hope all of you know, and I'm just saying this to people that already know this, but the local school wellness policy is one of these foundational items that is used and can be used to integrate safe routes to school in program or in the school district. It is federally required policy. Every 3 years, schools are required to do a wellness policy assessment, have policy in, and it is within the WSIC model. If you know Jeremy from MDH and the schools work with SHIP, there's a really great overlap between local school wellness policy, WSIC, and safe routes to school. And Kelly is going to drop a few more links to where you can learn more about this, but really these formal policies, specifically in the school district, gives kind of safe routes to school that formal policy home within the district. Couple other kind of school wellness examples of how we can find sustainability and champions within schools, right? Or how we can continue to show up. So first is a local school wellness committee. These are supposed to be meeting quarterly within the school year. So if you do have new partners in schools, you could say, hey, do you have a local school wellness committee that I can join and be a representative from the city, the county, as a community member that is passionate about safe routes to school. Wellness policy, seeing when they have updated last. Do they need a revisions? Do they want to review everything? What is in there? Is it vague of we support active transportation, or is there language of we support safe routes to school and encouragements, education, and so forth? Again, that WSIC model connection, understanding that sometimes the integration in before and after school time, it's not just during that 8 to 3 time period, but is there before and after school programs that safe routes to school could be in to, again, expand that reach of students. One of the most successful E's is the education E, so that walk, bike, fun, and how can we get this curriculum into PE. And once we get it in there, again, we teach it to the kids, there's that behavior change and cultural shift. And then we'll chat a little bit more about this, but reviewing and updating data, we can do this at any point. So if there was a new project coming through, that new sidewalk, and we are able to then go and review that data, right? Is there more walkers and bikers? What's that speed? What's that perceived safety and comfortability now that there's a path to walk? And any of those updated data can add to addendums in your safe routes to school plan. As we segue into it, plan updates is another really great way to maintain energy around safe routes to school and also have it be reflective. We don't want to make a plan and have it sit on the shelf for 15 years and then say, oh, it's been 15 years, we've got to go do another plan and then it's it, right? So reviewing it regularly, providing addendums when necessary, incorporating new data as they're changing priorities. We've seen in many of the infrastructure apps, there is a summary write-up sheet addendum that just says, here's that new data. Since we did this plan, we went and looked at the intersections that we're trying to apply for now, and here's that data that wasn't there before. So it's a really powerful and way to increase that competitiveness of applications. Another way to maintain is maintenance classes. So how can we bring in those community partners, those folks that are really passionate about walking and biking, to not have to be the only one that does this? So is it community education classes? Are they going to do bike mechanics where anybody from the community can come, they learn how to do it, and then you know what, when the school emails parents and says, hey, we need help, we have a bike fleet, there's 10 parents that just took that class now that can come help, or community members. In the real context, this would be really helpful. As we know, bike shops or bike deserts, as we thought we were funny this morning. There might not be something within a 10 to 15 mile range, or if not more, to go get bike help when your bike breaks. So can we have those skills to fix them? There's some school options for maintenance classes, right? Can we put it into an alternative learning course? Can high schoolers do it in their tech classes? Can we put it in a job training where they both help the school if they have bike fleets, but also get that skills to be able to get a job later on? And we have several examples, if you're interested in that, across the state and nationally, of how beneficial that is for everybody. And then is there a bike champion or educator, right? Can we bring Bike MN in if they're the right people? Do we have a passionate teacher that teaches choir but bikes in every day and they would actually be really passionate about doing this? Is there an enthusiastic student, biker, teacher, parent that we can call on? Again, spreading it so it's not just that one person contact and that's ownership. We just wanted to call out, kind of was similar to the last slide, but just really thinking through successful implementation and sustainability really does come from building that capacity beyond the funding. It's very important to have funding. We understand that, but also there's other ways, right? So can you identify staff at schools and districts? Who are the student and youth leaders that could give that input, that are walking and biking every day, that have that real lived experience? Parents and community members, PTOs, folks on this call, city, county staff, engineers, public health partners, and really the strongest Safe Routes to School program is it's owned by the community, right? This is our community Safe Routes to School plan. This is our program versus, oh, this is Sophie's program. She just does this at our school. It comes in, comes out. With that, we wanted to just share an example of, we have a Safe Routes to School coordinator that had this conversation in the past, knowing that like budgets were shifting, programs were shifting, and that they had to have a hard conversation with their key partners. And the question was like, if funding goes away, if my position goes away, if the grants go away, if they're shifting priorities, so forth, as we know across the nation, that is a thing at the moment. Like, what do we want to keep? And being able to have these conversations and having partners be like, the bike fleets are really influential for me, right? Like we want to prioritize that versus the education versus the event days, super easy lift, really big impact. So thinking through like, what do we want to keep at all cost? What are we going to try the hardest to keep? What is realistic that we can sustain if it's only one person versus a whole team? What do we might have to let go of for now or adapt to meet these new kind of situation? And it's really helpful too when having these hard conversations as looking at the plans, right? What is still relevant? What needs help or makes to happen? Because those plans did have community engagement from everybody. And where is there still energy? Like where should we prioritize that? And these conversations of, well, what if funding goes away or how do we shift this? Can also maybe shape what's relevant for that plan at that point. So with that, there's 3 questions. We are going to give you a few minutes to reflect, 3 minutes as we put on the slide, and then we're going to do a large group share out. But thinking through like in your program, if now you're 4 months in because we started a month ago, or if you've been doing this work for 10 years, like what elements of your work are most critical to sustain? If somebody were to come ask you right now, like we have to cut budgets, tell me what yours is. Where do you see the natural integration in policies and plans? And who should you be having this conversation with? Who is that important person to say, yeah, I should have that call. We should chat through this. So we're going to give you 3 minutes. We're going to come back at 10:45 and we're going to do a share out. All right, I encourage you to wrap up your thoughts, and we'll bring it back to the group. Is there anyone that wants to go first to share out? You do one or all three questions.
Sophia, I'll just start with the first question.
Sure.
It's really hard to pick what elements are most critical because it feels like you need all of them, right? So, being the old retired educator, I definitely want to keep the education going long after I'm gone and gone from the job, not gone from the world. Yeah. And
Once you win the lottery.
yeah, right. And the event days are important. I mean, it's also important. It's really, really hard, but most critical to me would be the education and the probably the engineering. Keeping the making sure we have routes that are adequate, safe for kids to get to school.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Anyone else? Yeah, Tony.
I think the education is critical because for me, it's one of those things like I think you can implement some education quick, where the infrastructure takes so much time. If you were to go through a TAP application, that could take up to 5 years before it's constructed. So having that education as a base, building that out, I think is super important. And then I think county engineers, I think it's super important for them to be included in the plan, maybe not on your steering committee, but at least having conversations with them so you don't put something in the plan that isn't in their plan, maybe for a few years out, and
Yeah.
that'll help with the buy-in piece. That's my thought or takeaway.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I can go next.
Yeah.
It's at the City of Plymouth, the council recently adopted some strategic priorities around like connectivity at the city, walkability, bikeability. And so next year we're doing our capital budget. We do it on a 2-year cycle. And with comprehensive planning on the horizon, I think time is of the essence to kind of put these priorities into like budget allocation to, sustain safe routes efforts beyond just putting a priority on a piece of paper.
Yeah, we know from a city level, there's been several successful in having like a $10,000 budget a year for safe routes to school at a city where it could help with painting a sidewalk or doing an event day if needed or things like that. It's not a lot, but it just also shows like there's that buy-in from leadership of like, we will put money toward this program.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can go next. I was thinking about the like natural integration question into like existing plans and policies. And so like our communities they're so small and they're so rural. I think they even forget that like hosting something like a walk and bike to school day and that kind of thing can be feasible and like should be something they're thinking about. And so since like the state already requires like some programming and that kind of thing in our classrooms to be taught, like encouraging schools to kind of see where things already naturally align and trying to encourage them to incorporate some more things like walk a bike to school days, or if they can during gym class, if they can go walk the streets and do like a safety lesson, and kind of just taking things a step further. I think encouraging that where there's already some programming there that exists and just encouraging our schools to take it a little bit further, I think can make a world of difference, especially like in our rural communities where active transportation isn't always seen as like a viable way to get around. Walking and biking can have a certain connotation, and trying to kind of tackle those stereotypes can kind of, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of ways they can be integrated there in our schools.
I love that. I love that you made those connections too. Anyone else? Austin, Emma?
I can say really quick.
Yeah.
So currently I would say promotion and education. So echoing a lot of what others have been saying. Because when we have the Safe Routes to School plans, a lot of the times the infrastructure stuff just has to really wait for a little bit, at least in the case of some places in Goodhue County, like Red Wing City. So the promotion, yeah, the keeping the knowledge of the option, the education about like, here's how you can best do it. Here's about, why it's helpful, the benefits. So I see those as the most critical to sustain for my Safe Routes to School work.
Mhm.
And then I see natural integration definitely into anything that a city or a town is already doing when it comes to just pedestrian infrastructure in general, or like towards zero deaths or safe system approach. Because I mean, yeah, everybody's walking from somewhere, and so far I'm pretty much just echoing a lot of what others have been saying, but people to have conversations with for my Safe Routes to School work. I really want to talk with city engineers and talk a bit with county engineers, because while the promotion and the education I think is the most critical right now, I want to see where we could be at when it comes to maybe getting that sidewalk in. I mean, heck, lowering the speed limit around a school. There's a few ones that just have these crazy intersections. That is like the biggest barrier out of everything for people walking and biking. And yeah, just kind of explore options there.
Thank you. Emma, do you have any? Otherwise, it's okay if you don't. Okay. I'm going to move us along. So we wanted to kind of outline some of the programming and engagement evaluation options that you can do that would need minimal funding. So I know oftentimes it's, oh, we need to get the boost grant because we need XYZ, or we need to do this because we need the funding. And that is very true, and we agree. There are many things that can be done with minimal funding. So first and foremost, event days. If printing is a barrier for you all, we're happy to even print your stuff, send you a box of the stickers and the flyers and the things. And that is such a light lift in the sense of the Safe Routes to School program, but such a big impact. It just gets people excited and talking. And even if it's 3 times a year, that is more than in outside Minnesota, because we're all really great at this, but like other states, like that is their goal of their program, and it is a successful goal. So making sure and reminding ourselves, like, even if it's 3 times a year that we do this event day, that is something, and it's important. There's a couple other event days that you could think through. That could be new items, knowing that like, oh, we always do walk to school day. We want to do something else, but we don't have the budget. Ruby Bridges event day is taking place November 14th. There's still a grant open from the national partnership. So if you want to do something like a story stroll, a community event, and so forth, there's funding for that. There's budget for that. So if you want us to review any of your applications, we're happy to. Our team is going to do a crossing guard day, a student safety patrol day. Again, 2 more event days that are new that you could join, promote, encourage. That would be minimal funds. Walk Bike Fun, completely free. The training, the implementation, the curriculum, the technical assistance, all free for you to use. Walking School Bus, free in the sense of items. It'll take time and effort to plan and coordinate. But if you are already designating some of your time to Safe Routes to School, this could be a way to lift up some of those transportation barriers in a very minimal way. Bus stop and walk, remote walks, same thing, coordination, but not much else is needed. Bike trains, similar to Walking School Bus. Crossing Guard program, student safety patrol program, is there a way to build this, promote this, encourage more folks to join in emails and meetings and things like that, versus and acknowledging you might need more flags, you might need more vests and such, and there are some funding for that through AAA and others. School street demonstration is a pretty minimal lift to demonstrate what it would look like if you closed off the front of your school street to expand that walking route or walking space for youth. We have kind of the bare minimum that you would need to create a school street. So if you're ever like, I'm really interested in this, how much is like the minimal funding? We're happy to provide that for you. Story strolls is another one. I know a lot of libraries love this. Participating wellness committee on my way. I go a little quicker because I realize we have 5 minutes left because we all chatted today a lot, which is great. Engagement evaluation, again, minimal funding, because we as our positions can do a lot of this work to update plans, addendums, understand what is needed within the community to implement safe routes to school. So it could be bike assessments, any of the safe routes to school data are tools, developing suggested bike maps, having youth engagement, using and data, collecting success stories. That is so important to then be able to share back to elected officials and key decision makers. Okay, I'm going to skip the breakout room for now because we have some scenarios that we want to share with you all. So we have 5 scenarios of what we would do or what we would encourage if someone came to us and said, our community is more engaged than our school partners. How can we support them? We could share them complete streets, sidewalk policies, speed zones, winter maintenance. Again, this is all that city level, right? That budget line item, having reoccurring meetings with various partners around safe routes to school. How can we integrate safe routes to school in the community plans, long range, active transportation, Vision Zero, and so forth? How do we transitioning from planning of the safe routes to school to the implementation, right? So we had a huge planning team, safe routes to school. First step would be identifying who's that core team, who's those 3 to 5 people that are going to take this forward into the implementation. Setting up reoccurring meetings, right? What have you done? What is our next step? Let's touch base. And then if you have an agenda item for those meetings, then it makes people kind of have to prepare and like share out when they go there. That's a hot tip. Prioritizing short, mid, and long-term projects, and then identifying that funding if needed, what that timeline is, right? And gathering that data before the application comes out to be set for that. Another scenario, I don't know how to scale rural communities. We're in the rural community, we have interest, but I just don't know how to do it, right? So the first one, we would encourage this scenario folks to leverage hubs, right? Work with the counties, your public health, your regional planners. No one has to start and recreate this wheel, so let's work with each other. Begin with low cost, high impacts priority. So what is a strategy, walk and bike to school day? Crossing flags, a driver awareness campaign, a crossing guard campaign. What are the things that would give very big awareness of the Safe Routes to School program, but very low cost? Building local champions, again, school staff, parents, volunteers, community orgs, and so forth. Integrating in systems. Now I feel like we're just repeating ourselves. That's kind of the key to this. The one thing we did want to call out about rural communities opposed to larger communities is rural communities are bike and walkable in size, right? Their whole community could be 3 miles. That means that whole community, you could technically be a bikeable community at whole, right? Versus a Minneapolis where there's miles and miles and miles. So thinking through it in that context, right? Like how do we make a walk and bikeable community since we are that size? And then we can adapt our programming, right? Anything that we create with Safe Routes to School, we can adapt. So we could have Safe Routes to School during the school day, do remote drop-offs, knowing that everybody gets bused or dropped off by car. Can we have a district-wide event? So there's that buy-in, and then integrating that walk bike fun into PE class. Knowing kids are at school to learn curriculum, so why don't we give them walk bike fun? Another scenario, supporting through winter. I would hope at this point, if we asked you what we could do for winter programming, you would say, you know what, Sophie, I could tell you, we would do winter walk audits. We could do programming. We could do winter walk to school day, some punch cards, outdoor gear, fat tire bike fleets is a really great one, story walks, and then those walking school buses and field trips. You can do those in the winter. We know it's not bad weather, it's just bad gear. And then that last one, if someone comes to us and says, man, we have these advocates that are so energized about Safe Routes to School, and I don't know what to tell them. They're we want to make sure that we use our energy right? And they're driving me a little mad. You could tell them, okay, here's some things that we can get their energy around. They could help update community engagement plans and data, right? Say, hey, we're having a tabling event. Can you come help? Can you do a hazard observation assessment or help with some walk and bike audits? Let's get your input because you're passionate about this community too. And let's write this down and it'll help with the planning. Resource mobilization. Could they help with event days? We know that school staff are short on time and capacity. So can we kind of adjust some of those resources and time to others? Leveraging grants and funding. Sometimes community partners and advocates are great grant writers. Can they help with some of that grant funding? Be ghostwriters if your company does have to submit it. Be those letters of support. Elevating voices and policy change, and really being that sustaining of the momentum. Okay, last one. I will acknowledge this is the first time that we've went fully over in 8 weeks. So I'm gonna take that as a win. So here's our call to action. Identify one step that you wanna take in the next 30 days to keep this momentum going. And then mark your calendars because we're gonna do a 30-day follow-up on September 30th from 10 to 11. We're gonna check in, see how things are going, really let you dive into this and be like, come back and be like, I tried doing that policy and this person's like, nope, we can't do that. Now what do we do, right? Or I tried having this conversation. I never got an email back. How do I approach this now? So we're gonna do a follow-up in 30 days. We get to see all of our faces again. If there's any questions that come up in the meantime, we are all available. Office hours, we can set up room to chat. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. And just know, as we started this academy, our hope is that we can then give you some technical assistance going in this next year, a little bit more than we would give maybe others because you did invest the time. So if you do have questions, want to brainstorm things, help us or have us come out, help with walk audits and such, we are available and interested. Okay, 1 minute over. I'm going to call that a win. Thank you for doing the academy. Best of luck. We're around if you need us. Otherwise, yeah, it's been really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.